Okay, so November 11th, we're on week 2, right? This is part 2, so we're going to do opportunities today. So, very important part of this, which I guess you just went through some of this, right? So maybe I can give you some best practices. I don't know if you ran into any hiccups, but we'll go through the whole thing today. So, opportunities is the little handshake icon. This is where you have pipelines for your buyers and sellers. There's a lease pipeline. So if you do property management or you have commercial leases or something, you could use it for that purpose. But essentially, we're gonna pick one of these pipelines to put whatever client we're working with in. Now, the only prerequisite to start doing one of these opportunities is your contacts. Your client has to be entered in your contacts. So the minimum information for a contact is just a name. So even if you don't even have an email address, you can still get this ball rolling. Of course, I would hope you have an email address. Kind of hard to talk to them or maybe send them some documents if we don't. So, put that stuff in there for your reference. But like I said, minimum, just make sure they're in your contacts. Now, if you're on a team like I am, so I'm on our staff team. We call it staff. It's just the staff members. But that's why you see a pipeline up here called staff, or a tab up here called staff. That is our team pipeline. If you're just an individual agent, then you'll have only your personal pipeline. So put them in the correct place. If you're on a team, you probably need to put them in the team pipeline. If you're an individual agent, you don't even have to think about this, right? You only have one choice. So okay, there actually was stuff in my staff pipeline, but I put everything under my personal because I've been doing this since before we were a team. So right off the bat, first thing you're going to notice is these 5 phases. And you're like, what the heck are these, right? Cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and close. So throughout the transaction, every transaction in some way, shape, or form, you're going through these phases. And that's the idea here. So you can truly start tracking them way back even before the appointment and like cultivate. Now, you don't have to do that. So there's, what KW intended, and then what I find agents use in practice. So I'll give you both. KW, very intentional that you start tracking these as you move along, because you can build checklists in here. So to make sure you're doing things, we actually have a new feature called client updates that will, you control everything, but it will automatically send emails to your clients as they move through this pipeline and we start checking things off. So, if you want to use that, you've got to use it all, right? Now, in practice makes total sense. You would want to find out your conversion rates, find out your timeframes, all of that for your whole process. So you can identify, okay, maybe if it's taking me a little longer to get from cultivate to appointment, maybe there's some training I can do, maybe there's some scripts we could practice to maybe improve that. And that's part of the purpose here, other than giving you average timeframes and stuff. The more data you have about your business, the better you can run it. You get that bird's eye view, right? So that's what they want here. In practice, I find a lot of agents don't get here until they're already active. So that is okay. Just understand that you're not going to get, the data from this part, right? And that's okay. It's not necessarily important to everybody. Now, when we first create one of these opportunities, the reason I talk about this a little bit is because we have to choose where we're starting in the pipeline. And you can't start an under contract or close. You have to choose one of the first 3. So if you don't know what they are, that makes it a really hard decision. So that's why I spend a little time talking about them. Typically, I'd say most agents are probably starting an appointment or active. But again, you have that ability. If you want to start tracking earlier, you may be in cultivate. Now I'm going to go ahead and, let's do appointment. So once you choose one of these phases, there are smaller stages underneath, because when you're in appointment or you're active, more happens underneath that than just marking it as you had an appointment or you're active now. So that's the idea here. And you can completely customize these. So under appointment, I have 3 stages: scheduling, scheduled, and kept. Those make sense. I mean, those are pretty good. The other ones, it's going to be different in each phase. So if I looked at active, we have pre-listing, showing, and negotiations. Now, just just in case somebody watching the video is following along, pre-listing is not the default. I changed mine. The default is staging. So I found that most agents, I don't know about most agents, but a lot of agents don't actually stage, which is totally fine. So I like pre-listing better. Maybe you only want 2 of these phases or stages. Maybe you want 5. You can change that by hitting edit stage at the top. And this will let you just either, you can do the little pencil icon to, change the name. You can add another stage or delete a stage if you want to change the numbers. And if you guys don't worry about legacy, you guys won't have that. That's like an older function. I'm actually just going to delete it. So that's a delete a stage. But it's meant to be flexible so you can truly build a system that reflects your business. So whatever that looks like for you, you may start with the defaults, and then at some point you decide that, okay, there's too many in there. I don't need all these different steps, or you may need more. Whatever makes sense for you. Now you can see these checklists right here. If I click on these, so right now I have 4 items in pre-listing, 4 items in showing. Let's take a look at what these are. So I have 4 checklist items set up. Set up time blocks and showing time, set up lockbox, create flyer or postcard, and then send a neighborhood snap. I could click add item and add whatever I like. This little checkbox over here, we're not going to go deep into client updates today because that's kind of not really a whole class by itself, but it's too deep for us now. But once you set up your checklist in here, we can start taking advantage of this. And if I actually checked it on client update, I can now set it to where when I mark that as done in my command system, it'll send an email to my client telling them that we've done this. So, there's clients out there who think you guys aren't working for your pay, that, you're just kind of waiting for closing like everybody else. That's not true. We know you work. This is a way for you to tell them. And it's just meant to add a little more clarity to what's going on. And they want to know what's going on, right? So they're, I don't know. I kind of view it as maybe help you get past some of those functionary phone calls where you're just answering a quick question. Well, maybe they were just looking for some of this information. So, and you can see my little checklist right here. So now once I've set it up, it's attached to each opportunity. And I can come in and say, okay, we already scheduled our photographer. We scheduled our brokers open, but we still need to do the rest. You can see it just checks them off. So, yeah, I have some checklists. I've actually been meaning to send them out to a couple people now, so I need to get them out today. They're just examples of kind of what other agents have used for all of these different sections. So if nothing else, it might be good just for provoking thoughts, or maybe trying to figure out what you want to put on these. I think they're in California, so they have a lot of steps. So bear with it, right? We may not need all the ones that they do, but I will send that out with the recording of this to you guys. So now let's actually go through creating one. Let me back up once. So if you click into the listing or the buyer pipeline, when you hit create opportunity, it is automatically going to select that pipeline. But if you're back on this screen that I was on, it does default to listing. So you need to be aware of that. You cannot change this after the fact. So very important you choose the correct one, or you're going to end up archiving it and then creating a new one. Because when compliance looks at this, if it's a buyer and you put it in there as a listing, well, they're going to want listing paperwork, right? And you're not going to have that. So it is what it is. Really wish we could change that, but again, I'm just drilling down on it. Choose the correct thing here first. Don't get in too much of a rush where we forget to change that. Several things that you have to choose in this opportunity are set for you. Like it automatically puts you as the owner. Probably don't need to change that. Automatically applies the market center. You're good to go there. If you are on a team, it should automatically put your team in as well. Now you do have to put a client. So this is why I always open up with, you need to put them in your contacts. If they don't exist in your contacts, they're not going to exist here. I don't know why I've been stuck on Gary Keller for a while, but I'm gonna sell something else to Gary Keller. He's like my best client right now. I know what's happening. So for those people on teams out there, you guys are running into this. I told you we have two separate pipelines for the team and for personal. If you're on a team, you're going to have two separate contact sections as well, one for the team and one for personal. So whichever pipeline you're putting it in, that needs to be where the contact lives. So I'm sure Gary Keller's probably in my team. So if I switch it to the team, he'll probably pull right up. I cannot spell Gary today. And there he is. So not a point I really wanted to make during the class, but maybe somebody who's watching the recording, or one of you guys who are attending, maybe you're on a team at some point, you could run into this. I guess I'll sell it to myself then. No. Sorry, I know I'm indecisive. That's confusing because then you'll see me as the agent too. So I'll sell it to my niece. Oh, there she is. Okay. So now if you have a co-seller, this is the other, the other seller, the other buyer. Doesn't have to be a spouse or anything. So go ahead and put them in. I've only run into this once, but maybe you have a third co-seller. Don't worry about it here. We can add that in DocuSign when we go to send documents, but you just can only put two contacts on this opportunity. So I'd say pick the primary two. Now name, it automatically generates this. So it puts the name of the primary contact, dash listing or dash buyer if they're a buyer. So whatever you need to do there. You can change this, feel free. It's really for your reference. I know a lot of agents put the address here. You don't have to do that. There's somewhere else we'll put it, but feel free to put whatever makes sense to you. Tags just let you put little labels. So I'll put first-time home buyer or first-time seller so you can see it. But you don't have to put those. It's more for an organizational aspect for you, or just to have that label if you want to see it when you're looking at this opportunity. If you need to create something, I don't know if these are defaulted in there. I probably created these, but if you need to create something custom, just start typing. So this works exactly like the tags and contacts. I know I have an abbreviated first-time buyer there, but now I could create first-time buyer and it would exist in my system now. So very easy to create those, use them however you like. Now I didn't point it out, but the things with the little red stars, those are required. Everything else that I'm kind of going in, I don't have to put in. So if there's maybe like a deadline to get our offer in or something, don't worry about this. Come in later and fill it in. But if you have this information, I'd say put in as much as you can. So if you know if you have an estimated close date, go ahead and put it in. If you have an estimated list price, but if we're back in Cultivate, you won't have that stuff, right? So don't feel like you need to put it in. The commission rate is just your side of the transaction. So I know it's a 6% total, but in this case, we're representing the listing side. So this is going to be 3%. Now, if you're taking a 2.5% listing or 4% listing or something, of course, put that. Nothing you're putting in here is like locked in the stone, except the clients. You can't change your clients, but like your commission rate, your closing date, all of that stuff we can adjust later on. And then the last thing you choose is this phase or stage. So this is why I started with that. So you would at least kind of know what's in here. So, whether we're starting in Cultivate, appointment, or active. For this one, I'll say appointment, and then I can choose which one of those stages underneath. So if maybe we're just scheduling, maybe I already scheduled that appointment, or we've already had it, we're just not active yet. So, yeah, that's it. Then we can hit create, and it's going to open up our opportunity for us. So this is where all the magic happens. So your opportunity is how we're going to get the DocuSign to send paperwork off. It's your compliance file, so where you can keep any information that goes with this transaction. There's probably a way to put it in here. And then lastly, it's where we request our commission. So no, it's grayed out now. I'll show you how to get past that in a minute. But right off the bat, it just defaults us to this details page. And if you start scrolling down, we're going to see there's actually some additional information we can put in now. So we can start capturing dates and time frames. These dates do push into your reports in Command. So the main one you're probably going to notice this in is your goal report. So if you put your goals in, you set them up where you can actually track everything. This is how it knows you went on an appointment or you had a contract. So if you're not filling this in, your goals are going to be skewed. This does not transfer into your contract right now. They're working on integrating this with DocuSign at a higher level, but right now it's very limited, the data that's coming from Command into DocuSign. It will bring over your contact info, so your name, email address. I think it brings your phone number over too as the agent. It also brings any client information over, so it should bring their name, phone number, and email address as well. For a while, this property section is where we'll fill in your address. That was actually coming through, but then it stopped after an update in September. So I know they're working on it, but I don't want to promise that's going to come through. Now this property section, it is very important that you fill this out. This is how your MCA can look it up by the address, which is what they're going to do for earnest money, for your DA, any of that. So make sure you're filling in this property section. For listings, it actually won't let you submit your commission until you do this. So just be sure you're filling that in. Now I have this section right here. I can just hit the pencil and do basically a Google search. So if I put Tennies Campbell, see right there, and it just fills in the rest of the details for me. If you have a new build or something, if you start typing in all this information, because it's not going to pull up on Google, it will eventually give you an option to manually enter it, which is just saving the information you put in. So, but I haven't run into that too often. Usually it's pretty good. Now, for a listing, the other option you have is right up here for select from listings. So if it's active on MLS already, you can come up here and do that. And it's just going to pull up, it defaults only my listings. You can change this though. I mean, really, it should be your listing. I don't know why you'd do this if it wasn't, but either way, just, well, that's not true. You may not be the primary listing agent. You may have a co-lister, or you may be a partner with another agent or something. So there may be a reason it doesn't pull up under your number. So, but you can find it and select it, and it's going to fill out this property section for you. It will pick up anything in MLS. Yes. So if for whatever reason it's not feeding through, come talk to me, talk to somebody in your office. There is a report we can pull to see if things are getting flagged from the feed from MLS. So there could be a reason for that. Now, just like if you select your listings, it fills out your property section. If you fill out your property section, it fills in this listing section. So, so as long as you do one, you're covered, right? So if I pick Tennies Campbell here and hit save, it now fills that in. So again, I know it seems minor, but it is important you do this because you will run into a roadblock later on if you don't. Now, if this was a buyer, we won't have the select from listings option at the top. We'll just have the property section. That is the subject property, right? So whatever they're buying. So I'll stop for a second, take a breather. Any questions? We doing okay so far? Okay. Nikki, doing good? Okay. So let's dive into some of these other tabs. Now, seller profile. Of course, if you're on a buyer, this is going to say buyer profile. This is linked up to your mobile app. I know it says consumer platform. That's what it means. So your mobile app, if they're registered on your website, this would probably show up too. So on your mobile app, if you open it up, there's that middle option at the bottom. It's called guides. That is what's linked up to this. So if they've registered on your mobile app, they've logged in and they're using it, you can update that guide. So it's basically just a checklist telling them what the process is. So we start off with getting pre-qualified, then we can start looking at homes, then we submit a contract, then we're under contract, right? Whatever that process is, you can update what their app says right here. So you can just check off that we've done that. It's almost like those client updates, just kind of feeding to the mobile app. But if they're not registered on your mobile app, you can't use it. So main point I want to get across. So yeah, that's basically it. I found that a lot of agents aren't necessarily using that right now. If you guys haven't looked at it in a while, they've done some big updates. So I really like it. Some people like their old app better. I did not. So So the easiest way to get your mobile app is just download it off the App Store, and then, yep, if you look for KW, it's like KW Buy and Sell Real Estate, but white background with a red KW in it. You will have to create a login first. There's not an agent login in that, so it just treats everybody as a consumer. Create your login, and then the bottom right button that says More. Go into that, and you'll have to find your agent, and of course, that's going to be you. So that's how you brand the mobile app. But then you can start sharing it out. There's a share button under that same More section, and then if you branded it first, when you share it, it's going to stay branded. So they register, and boom, they're already in your contacts. You get a notification that you have a new lead for your mobile app. Pretty nice. That guide I'm talking about, you can customize. So you do it under this consumer button down here, but you can totally change it. You can change the pictures. You can change what it says. You can change the order it's displayed in. So you can tweak that to reflect how you do business as well. So yeah, that's basically all that happens on this seller or buyer profile button. So the next button is documents, and this is where you'll probably spend most of your time in an opportunity. This document section is your compliance folder. So this is where you're going to submit all your completed documents with signatures and everything. Now we have 3 folders over here: listed, under contract, and closed. So this is your listing documents, your contract documents, and your closing documents. And if you start to click through them, you can see I have this list over here on the right that's asking for, MLS printouts, square footage documents. There's going to be the listing document on here somewhere. Oh, right, sell listing agreement. There you go. So right now, the office is asking for up to 10 documents from the agent. So some of them are marked required. Some of them, I don't like that one because it's so big. There you go, lead-based paint. This is my favorite one, conditionally required. That's an obvious one because if your home's built after 78, you do not need any lead-based paint disclosures, right? So you may not need everything in this folder, but this is typically what we're asking for. This is from the Market Center, so you can't change it. Yes. Well, if they can. I think they can. So I think we're working on that too. This is a little locked down by Keller Williams International at the moment, so you may just have to deal with it. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So, but yeah, so a couple things on that. I mean, you can't delete any of these, what I would call placeholders out of here, but you can add new ones. So if you do add item, you can create one of those custom placeholders and you can call it whatever you want. You do have to select the document type. This is just a label. It doesn't change anything. So just whatever makes the most sense. And then upload your document here. So, that would just let us add, I mean, maybe you have multiple counteroffers and you don't want to put them all together or something. There's many reasons you might add an item. So I use that all the time. Now, if it's a document that doesn't need to be checked by compliance, it probably doesn't need to go into one of these folders. So that's why you have this custom folder down here. So this could be a PDF document that has all the text messages you sent, all the emails. Maybe it's just like HOA documents or something you think maybe would be nice to keep with the file. Compliance doesn't need to look at it. And I always liked HOA documents because maybe the client calls you in a year and asks you for it, right? Well, you don't have to guess. You don't have to go dig around. You know it's in here. So I do like that idea. Now, yeah, we'll come back to those two. So I have listing, contract, and closing folders. So if I click through these, that list of documents changes because what we're asking for you at that point changes. So for contract, we have 17 documents we're asking for. Now you do not need them all. I don't think I've ever seen them all filled out, but I'm sure it happens. But this is where you may look through here and see, okay, what is all just the required documents? You're going to have to use your best judgment here because you just may not need these all. I mean, if you don't have a counter offer, we're not going to put anything there, right? So just, upload whatever you need. Once you've uploaded all of your signed documents, the submit to MC button, submit the Market Center button will light up in blue and you can click it. So that's how you actually submit it to compliance. Now add comment, that's how you add a comment for this file. So it's independent for all these files. So maybe we're missing a document because the other agent didn't send it to us, or we're still waiting on one of the sellers or the buyer to sign something. Well, we can put that comment in here, and that way compliance knows. So they might still approve the file and just say, okay, this is approved, but make sure you upload that MLS sheet or something. So you can put whatever you want here. You can use this to add comments for yourself if you want. But if it's for compliance, I would take this suggestion up here, where you can add one of these little @ symbols to mention somebody, because it gives them a notification. So if you do @, the only options you're going to see here is if you're on a team, you'll see other people on your team, but you will also see everybody in your Market Center leadership. So that's why you see all of us. We're also on a team though. So you may not see like Megan, but you will definitely see Rindy. You'll definitely see, I want to say Keisha, but Amy is our compliance person. So she's typically who you'd send this to, but it might be for Kelly, our assistant MCA, because she does DAs. So maybe something's funky or weird on this one, and we just want to put a note in there for her. We can do that. Now, adding files is pretty simple in this system. I'm sure you see this add a file button next to each one of these placeholders. You can use that. So we can click this and kind of do it one by one. So if I click add a file, I can upload my MLS printout in this scenario, and then assign it, and it would be uploaded to command. So you can go line by line and do that. There is a quicker way. So this attach multiple files. This is how I like to do it. So if you click that, it just opens up all of those individual line items, and you can either click on it to browse, or you can drag it from your folders, or whatever that looks like to you. So this just kind of lets you go down the line and upload multiple documents at once. So you still need to put them in their separate placeholders. Oh, I didn't talk about that. So let's say you got all your contract documents, but you scan them in at the printer, so they're all in one file, one PDF. If you want to be really nice to compliance, you could put them into a splitter, which DocuSign has a splitter. You could split those documents up somehow. There's many different ways you could do that. However, our compliance doesn't require that. So we have, it's in DocuSign too, but it's also downstairs. We have a paper contract checklist that has a certain order that the document should go in. It actually matches this. So there's your hint. It does match this. So if you haven't clicked these arrows to sort anything. So if you put it in that contract order, our compliance has said that is okay. She doesn't mind reviewing it that way. Have no idea about Platinum. So don't know if they're sticklers or not, but I would hope not. I mean, as long as you have all the documents there, it should be okay. But it is a workflow thing. If it's not in the right order, or they can't get it in the right order, then it slows down compliance. So there's a reason for it. But all that to say, if you have a single PDF document that has all of your paperwork in it, my best practice, honestly, I like to add an item in that case, saying, and I would just call it all listing documents, all contract documents, something like this, so compliance knows what they're looking at. But if nothing else, I would put it under the contract, if you don't want to add an item yourself. So it doesn't really matter at that point though, because it should have all of these documents included. So that's about it on, oh no, there's one more thing. I knew there was something else on this page. Okay, there's gonna be two things. So this is kind of new, but you can export all of your selected documents. Now, I just assume it's for the folder you selected, right? Because there's no way to select specific documents over here. But you can export them if you need to get them out of there for some reason. You have an option to do that. And now let's say our listing documents are great. If we hadn't approved a return status, we would see that just to the right, kind of right where my mouse is right here. So returns is red, approved is green. Hopefully see lots of green. But let's say we submitted our contract documents, everything's going well, and then the contract busts. So now we have a bunch of documents uploaded in there that are no longer valid. We have to pivot. We're going to have new documents we need to put in here, and we don't need the old stuff, right? Best practice for that is right here next to whichever checklist you need, which is probably going to be your contract checklist. But maybe for whatever reason you had to redo listing paperwork. So there might be a reason to do this under a listing. If you click the little arrow next to the name of that folder, you can add a version. So that is exactly what these versions are for. So I could have, let's just say 15 documents uploaded to this file right now. But if my contract busts, I need a blank file. I can add a version and it is going to give me a blank file. The old one still exists. So I'll just leave it called V2. The newest version is going to be the default. So every time I come in here now, I'm going to see my new checklist. But if I ever wanted to go back and look at that paperwork, I can just come up here and switch to the first one. So very useful. You don't have to go and like archive your opportunity and start a new one. There's no reason for that. I think that makes more work and more trouble than it's worth. So I would definitely use these versions. Now I know this is a lot. There's a lot of little tidbits, little small pieces to this. Don't expect you guys to remember it all. It's one reason we record these, so you can go back and watch it. But I mainly want you guys to know this exists. So this is something that hopefully you don't have to use too often. But just know it's there. So if this does come up for you, you can at least ask somebody, say, hey, I know there's a way to do this. Could you just remind me how? Because hopefully you guys don't have to use that too often. But reality is we're going to need it at some point, especially in the market right now. So the only thing I haven't touched on this page is this giant button right here for transaction. So this is your DocuSign button. So the first time you click it, or before you click it, it says start a transaction. After you click it, the button actually changes color and it's going to say go to transaction. Doesn't matter what it says, it does the same thing. This is your link to DocuSign. So when you click this icon or this button, you won't have options like I do. I've connected Dotloop, so you guys won't have that. So you shouldn't have to actually choose DocuSign, but I do. So when I click this, it opens up DocuSign. I can sign in and then I can start working in DocuSign. This does create your, DocuSign calls them a room, but it's just your folder in DocuSign that all this paperwork's going to live in. So you can, tell each opportunity apart. So I'm not going to go ahead and log into that because that's next week's class where we dive into all that. But that is how you get to it. That transaction button every time will take you to DocuSign. So okay, nothing wrong with Dotloop. Absolutely, you can connect Dotloop. It functions exactly like DocuSign does. Well, it's not, for me, it's not an argument of what's better. It's what's more convenient for you. DocuSign's free, so there's it doesn't have that price tag of $30 a month, so that's really nice. But the biggest benefit for Dotloop is the mobile app. So if you're somebody who writes a lot of contracts on the go, Dotloop may be a better fit for you right now. Nothing wrong with DocuSign once you know how to use it, and there's not a huge learning curve, but there's definitely some best practices. It's a good system. It's a little easier on the client's end. But yeah, there's pros and cons to both. So I can't say one's better than the other, but there may be a reason you choose one over the other. Now, Dotloop you can connect. You can run it the same way. Best practice for both of them is to start your room in DocuSign or in Dotloop your loop through command. So hitting this transaction button will do that for you. The big reason is if I want to add these documents from DocuSign or Dotloop, once I've connected it, I get an option to pull it in directly. So you don't have to download it. There is no way to connect an existing room or loop to an opportunity. So that's why you got to start it there. But once you start it, you can just do business as usual. So now I don't have any documents. That's why it says no documents to display. But of course, if once we started actually doing our listing documents and stuff, we would see anything we've created listed there, and we can just choose it. So really nice. My favorite feature out of all these, but you've got to do it the right way or it won't work. Now let's talk about getting paid. So kind of last part of this. You're pretty new with KW, right? Okay, so nobody here has talked about green sheets. Good. Green sheets are the old way we used to request your commission. We're past that. We're not going to do that anymore. So because all of our information is already in the opportunity, there's very minimal information we have to enter at this point. So you do have to go to offers first. So this can get a little confusing for some agents because you submit your contract documents. Obviously, your offer's in there. You're like, I already have an offer. We've accepted it. We're good to go. Well, we have to put it in the system. Excuse me. So if I add a new offer, it's going to ask you to name it. Again, this is somewhere where there's a couple things that are what KW envisioned, and then a couple things that I found that agents use in practice. So part of it is this is a great system to compare multiple offers if you put them in here. I found that most agents don't because you have to do your net sheets, right? You can't get around that, the state requirement. For every offer, you're supposed to do a net sheet. But I found most agents don't. So what I found is probably more than 90% of the time, we're just putting in our accepted offer into this, which is okay. But just know there is a way for you to compare offers. One of the screens we're going to see, if you're not doing that, there's no reason to fill it out. So, but that's also a reason why you might want to name them something different. So I'll just leave it initial offer. It's really just going to have us put in very minimal information. So, whatever the name of the offer is, what is your offer date, and what is your closing date? Put in the correct closing date, guys. This is something a lot of agents miss this. They just kind of hit next and go because it is automatically filled in. I wish it wasn't, but just make sure that's the right closing date because this is going to feed through to the DA. So, if it's wrong, your MCA is going to have to fix it and kind of just cause them a headache. So just double check it, but I'll leave it alone. I'll just leave default. So the next page is for parties. So who are the clients? Who are the agents? It does fill in your primary contact, but if you have a co-seller or co-buyer, make sure you put both of their names on this line. You don't have to fill out the rest of the information. It's useful mainly for your records, but it can be helpful if your MCA has to send something to the client for some reason. Maybe they got to, I can't think of a reason, but maybe they need it for some reason. But put them both in. So if it was Abigail and Josh, I just put them both in. Do the same thing for the buyer. So that one you're going to have to go look at the contract or the offer or whatever the paperwork is. And then we're going to do the same thing for the agent. So anything without that little red star, we don't have to fill in, right? So again, do it if you want to. If you don't, put their name. We'll make Cindy the other agent. Oh, I didn't put a buyer name, did I? Told you I was going to get him in here. So just fill that in, and then we can go to terms. So this is where we actually start talking about the offer. So very short little form to fill out. At the top here, you can't just fill in sale price. You have to fill in either finance amount or cash. So just however they're purchasing. Are they paying cash or are they financing? What we're looking for here is the total sale price. So this is what the number it's going to use to generate your commission. So don't subtract earnest money or we're not looking for anything fancy. If the sale price is $150,000, we're putting $150,000. Now, earnest money amount, you're going to know this, right? If we did $500 earnest money, you can just type in $500 over here. If we did 1%, it will figure it out for you. So, whatever's easiest for you. These next two, option fee and termination option, we don't really use in Oklahoma. I haven't had a reason to use any of these, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say you probably won't either, but they're there if you do need them. And then seller costs, typically, again, most people leave these zero because we've negotiated this. This is probably the one, if nothing else, if if they're contributing to the home service agreement, you could put that information in here. Doesn't affect your commission in any way. So it's just kind of, again, this is probably more for comparing multiple offers. That's probably the bigger benefit here, but yeah, put it in if you need to. And then the last page is agent analysis. So this is what I was talking about. You can put pros, cons, and a summary for that offer. If you're not sending this to the client to compare them, absolutely no reason to fill this out, right? You could put notes in there for yourself if you want, but we're not going to send this to anybody. So, you know, there's my 2 cents. You probably don't need to fill this out, but if you want to, feel free. But once you've entered that information, hit save. So we're mainly putting in the closing date, all the clients and the agents attached to this, and then the sale price and the earnest money. And that's about all we're entering at this point. So I've got my offer in there. It gives me the summary. I can do the 3 dots and edit it if I did something wrong or I need to change something. And I can accept or reject it, right? Now notice my commission is still grayed out. So if I go over this little I, it says you can view your commission when you have an accepted offer. So it's very important that you actually accept this. See immediately, boom, commission opens up. So this, let's just go back for a second. So if we have that contract bust, there may be a reason we have to come in here and change this, right? So that's why they have the change response. So you can change a response and it just kind of backs up a little bit and says, okay, we're back to marking it as accepted or rejected. Yeah, I don't think there's anything. The only thing I can think that might throw you off there is if the DA has already been created, that kind of locks up some of this. So you're just going to have to work with your MCA on that one, which it probably is just giving them the information, or maybe you have to do an old school green sheet or something, but talk to them. They'll direct you correctly. But I have an accepted offer here now. So I can come into commissions and I can review my commission. At this point, we should really just be checking things. It does not put in our contract date for whatever reason. I've seen this happen more often than not. So you might have to hit edit general information and enter that date. Yeah, we did have to put this into the offer. So, so we'll say, sure, Friday. Friday is a contract date. Now notice you can't change this close date, right? We can't adjust it at this point. So that's why I kind of hit on that when we were entering the offer. Make sure you put in the right close date. If it's wrong here, we're going to have to go back and edit that offer and fix it. So just make sure you do that. So that really should be it. So at this point, I've got my sale price and my commission, everything broken down right here. And if I scroll down, I'll see the further breakdown. So what's my royalty and cap look like? How much is this contributing to those? How much is E&O? All of that fun stuff. If you wanted to add a deduction or something like that, you can come up here and edit agent payment, and you can change that around. So this is somewhere if we had another agent on this, we can adjust the units and commission, but you can also scroll down and change these amounts. Or if you have something additional like a referral, a deduction, whatever it is, you can enter that information too. I found most people don't, so hopefully you guys don't either. But if you do, go ahead and put it in there. Now, if you do have another agent that maybe we were working with them too, you can add another agent right here, and we can it just has you select the agent. Should be able to do pretty much anybody in your market center. So I'm sure I can find Cindy in here. Yep. And then start filling out whatever that breakup looks like. So if it's 50-50, 70-30, whatever, so 70-30. Well, let's do a tough one. Let's see. Let's do, I guess 75-25. So 75-25 would be 0.25 units. And then I can hit the calculate commission. It's going to figure it out. So pretty slick. Now if I tried to save this, I'm going to get a red error message saying, oh, you're paying out too much commission. Because I didn't, you have to go back then and then, adjust the whole commission being paid to one agent. So, but yeah, you guys might have to do that at some point. Probably not too often unless you're really working closely with another agent. But that's about it on this page. Once you're kind of happy with all the numbers, everything looks good, submit button will get it to your MCA. Our MCA asks us to add 3 bits of information in the notes because there's nowhere else for you to put them right now. And that would be where the earnest money is being held, who the closing company is, which those two may be the same. So Chicago Title is holding the earnest money, and they're also our closing company. You don't have to list them twice. You can just put earnest money held by Chicago Title. Your MCA knows that means you're closing there. And the last one is the email for the closer. And that is so we weren't sending DAs for a while, but we have started sending them again. So Kelly should send your DA to your title company for you, or your closing officer, whatever they're called, your closer. And that way they have it. So you'll have a copy in your document section too under your closing file. You should get the email too, but just so everybody has it, right? We don't want to show up to closing and for some reason nobody got that. But once you have those bits of information, you can just save it and then you can submit it. And that's really everything. I can't think of anything extra to add. So, but that's it. That's, so we created it. We even talked about managing it and checklists and all that. Talked about getting our documents in there for compliance under documents, and then submitting our offer and our commission so we can get paid. And that's like the whole thing. Once you're done with that, I mean, you need to come in here and submit your closing files and stuff. But that's it. You've gotten paid at the table, hopefully, as long as you got everything in on time. Our office is, I believe it's 3 business days. You need to have all this submitted 3 business days earlier, or you're probably not going to get paid at the table. So the earlier the better. There's no reason to wait on any of this. The second you start submitting documents to compliance, you might as well go ahead and submit your commission. So next week, we'll go into DocuSign. It'll just be a deep dive into that, how to pull documents and fill them out, how to actually send them to your clients. And then, I don't know if you guys have any extra questions or anything, we can address those too. So, yep, same time, Wednesday, 11 o'clock. So that's all I got for you guys today.
Awesome as usual. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions?
No, I'm good with that. I just went through that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go through it. And DocuSign's a process, but once you have it down, it's easy. So
Thanks, Jeremy. Have a good week.
welcome, you too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions, Nikki?
Well, I know I will have questions, but right now, none specifically, but as I'm like going through this, when I, get all my millions of clients, then I will have questions, I'm sure.
Sure. And that is, the best way to learn this is to go through it.
Yes.
So whether it's, maybe make a dummy one just for some practice for yourself to move things around and play with it. But it really starts to stick when we actually have somebody we're working with.
Awesome.
All right. Well, if you have any questions in the meantime, you know how to reach me, so feel free.
Okie doke.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.